Ladies and gentlemen, we are elated to have Shri Sameer Shukla, Joint Secretary, Department of Financial Services, Government of India, with us today. Before I invite him to speak, I would like to say a few words about him. Shri Shukla is an IS officer of 2005 batch of Karnataka cadre. In his current role as Joint Secretary Banking, Shri Shukla is involved with various aspects of banking ecosystem in India, including but not limited to policy matters and review of banks. And he has been working closely with banks. Shri Shukla has 2 decades of professional experience ranging from corporates to government sector. He has earlier also worked in the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting and Ministry of Steel, Government of India. Sir, we are glad to have you with us today. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mukti. A very good morning to all of you, dignitaries on the dais, and the participants of the today's events. Let me first of all welcome all of you once again, because this has been an initiative in which we had been deeply involved, and we were trying to have this kind of a seminar or a workshop, whatever you would like to call it. We had certain perspective in mind. I would just like to spend a minute or so in trying to set the context in which this seminar has been organized. Now, over the last few years, and especially over the last few months, there had been a lot of talk about, climate finance, a lot of talk about green finance, a lot of talk about climate risk, how to integrate it in your, business models, a lot of talk about ESG, so on and so forth. However, what I felt was there is certainly a need for bringing in a greater understanding of all these aspects to the people down below the line in the banks and the financial institutions who are working. We have had certain discussions and interactions on these topics with the chief executives of the banks and the financial institutions. However, a need was felt that if we really want to bring about any substantial change, if we really want to bring about and inculcate this behavioral change in the very basic way in which the banking is being done, so that you integrate this aspect of green finance and climate finance and the risk factors involved in it, then we certainly need to get this idea through to the people who are actually working on the ground. So you have to go down below from the leadership level of the banks and the financial institutions, go down right 3 or 4 steps below, have a team of people who would actually be involved in actual working. So that was the ideation part which led to the organization of this workshop. The idea of today's workshop is certainly not to, make the chief executives or the top level people aware of this whole thing, but to bring about these ideas, these discussions which are happening across the globe. I'm sure that all of you might have heard of all these terminologies, all of you are quite aware of this being in the banking field. But what is churning in the country? What is it that's happening globally? What's it that's new which is coming out? That is something which we felt that it should be brought to the people who are actually working on the field down the below, so that you should be able to understand the things which may come from the top management and be able to take actions accordingly. Just a small part of how exactly this whole process initiated, and I'm very happy that a very good range of panel discussions and the addresses have been lined up, and I'm very thankful to all the experts who have kindly consented to come and deliver their views on it. Now, having said that, we all know the challenges which are there in this field. The challenges could be on the asset side of it, on how you are trying to do the lending, what are the challenges on the lending side of it. There are a lot of challenges on the liability side of it. How are you going to source the fund for that? There are a lot of challenges on the risk side of it. How are you going to integrate the risk aspect into this whole thing? A lot of challenges on the compliance part of it, because that's again a very, very important issue, and it's going to take an important, role in it. Let's first understand and accept the fact that this is going to stay. It's not going to go away. Let's not wish that this green finance or the climate finance is going to go away over a period of next 12 months or 24 months. It has come, it has arrived. So now it is the right time for us also to really reorient ourselves, to understand that the time has really come where we should be able to, we should focus on these aspects. Now, as far as our country is concerned, let me say that the strategic, the Panchamrit initiative that had been announced by our Honorable Prime Minister, it actually forms the cornerstone of India's vision for the climate change. And now, what are these 5 important aspects? I would just like to repeat it at the cost of repetition. I'm sure all of you must be knowing it. The first one being to establish a 500 gigawatt of non-fossil energy capacity. The second one being achieving India's 50% energy capacity from non-fossil fuel resources, and all this by 2030. To reduce the emission intensity of the country's GDP by 45%, decrease of 1 billion tons of carbon emissions, and reaching a net zero target by 2070. I mean, these are very, very ambitious targets. And these efforts, if you really see that right now where we are actually in the landscape where, we are underfunded. There is a lot of inequality in the available resources that are available for being distributed. And there is a huge gap between what is required to meet the target and what is actually available as on date. So a lot of challenges are there which needs to be addressed. I'm sure in the course of discussions, a lot of inputs will come on the various available sources for the green finance and the various ways in which the lending can also happen. Now, there are a lot of facts and figures which I would not like to get into the details, which I'm sure it will come up. Something like, the estimated investment of around 3 trillion, which is required to achieve the international climate objectives and all. I would like to focus more on what exactly is our position, what exactly are we planning to do, what exactly we have already done. So there are a lot of work which has already happened in this field in our country. What's important is to understand that there exists a gap, and that gap needs to be filled. So we have to find the innovative ways of finding the solutions of how to cover up this kind of a gap. We also need to empower the various emerging market economies. There is a lot of untapped potential across the globe. So there is an estimate of International Finance Corporation which projects that there is a total need or requirement of somewhere around 23 trillion US dollars. And there is a lot that needs to be done. Now, capitalizing on these untapped market areas can go a long way. For example, let us say that the global ambition was to triple the renewable energy capacity over a period of time. And when we look back, what we have achieved, we have already doubled this capacity. So we are on the right track. However, and having said that, there are a lot of challenges which are there. The primary challenges are those of, a lot of disaggregated demand which is there. We really do not have the ready projects with us, which can certainly tap in those resources which are available in the market. So we really need to come up with a lot more of those things. A very important aspect which I feel is that now we should start thinking in the terms of developing innovative financing models. The traditional models are not going to work in this era and in this ecosystem. We have to think innovatively. We have to think of something like, say, for example, blended finance, where there is a scarcity of resources, where the projects are, let's say, partially viable. We might have to think of those things. We might have to look at, energy as as a service for the solar and electric mobility. We might have to look into some other areas. We might also have to look into some guarantee-based instruments for these new technologies that are coming up. So there are a lot of things. I'll not get into the details of that, but I'm just throwing open this field for you that these are some of the ways in which we will have to, address these issues. Another important challenge which I feel is that there is a lack of, available intermediaries who can really source in the capital and can deploy it in the places where it is required. So in this respect, what I feel is that the financial institutions of the country, including NAFED, including SIDBI, including other DFIs, also the banks, the NBFCs, and a lot of NBFCs I'm sure are doing a lot of work on the green finance. They are better placed. They are required to reorient their strategies in order to ensure and to build up the capacity in order to tap in those potentials and to deploy it in the places where it might be required. Let me now directly jump into, instead of getting into further details, and by accepting the fact that today I intend to be as much on the receiving side and to act more as a listener and to gain the benefits of the deliberations that will happen here, rather than as the one who would like to, give inputs to you. Having said that, I would just like to put in 2-3 more points before I close up my points. A lot of things have actually happened in the country. A lot of initiatives have been taken. Now the green bond framework has been, is already in place. It has been developed. There are board approved plans for actions which are already in place. The priority sector lending is now included as a sustainable finance. Banks are following the ESG risk rating models. The green deposit schemes have been implemented, and there are, green lines of credits that have been floated by certain banks, wherein the money that comes in, those things are actually deployed for the specific purposes. A lot of things have happened, but a lot more is to be done. The journey has just begun. And the faster we understand that we need to adopt these changes in our day-to-day activities, we need to invest more in the technologies, we need to build up more business models, we need to factor in the climate risk into our business models. The faster we understand it, the better it will be. The world is moving in a direction we certainly cannot be left behind. A lot of work has already happened, and I'm sure that we as a nation would certainly be taking a lot more initiatives. The DFIs, the banks, the NBFCs, and the other participants who have come here, they are certainly, ready to take on these challenges and go forward. I welcome you once again. I hope that the deliberations today would certainly help you I will not say that they will make you an expert on this. I'm sure all of you know much of it, but that will certainly give you some perspective on where the world is going. It will certainly give you some perspective on where we ought to go, certainly some perspective on where we are and where we need to reach, the challenges that are there on the way, and maybe some possible solutions on how we can overcome those challenges. I thank BCG, and I thank the whole team of IBA, Mr. Mehta and everybody, for having organized this workshop in a very good structured manner. And I thank all the panelists from my side once again, including the esteemed panelists sitting on the dais, for having accepted the invitation to come and share their valuable thoughts with all of you. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful seminar ahead. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, sir, for your valuable words.